I want to talk with you now about Windows 10 Wi-Fi settings. Like most all operating systems out there these days, of course, Windows 10 being no different, it's got the support for wireless configuration. Wireless is now a lot more popular than it has been over the years, and even in some security environments, I've started to see it be utilized. I do a lot of stuff with the military, and I've started to notice the military is being a lot more lenient than it used to be in regards to wireless as well. But of course, we've come a long way from where we were, 20 years ago. First off, wireless is based on a set of standards. The wireless standards are based on what is called 802.11. A lot of people, when they hear that word 802.11 or that term 802.11, they immediately think, oh, well, that's wireless. Just so you know, 802 is not just wireless. 802 is a set of standards that was created by the IEEE. They started designing it in the 1970s, and then they finished their initial standards in February of 1980, which is where 802 comes from. Okay, so there's some, I don't know, maybe useless knowledge for you. February of 1980, that's what the 802 stands for, 1980 and February. Okay, so by the time we got to about 1999, they started coming out with these standards. Microsoft started adapting these standards, and the industry started to kind of adapt these standards, and they were at 802.11. Now, they came out with 802.11a. A was a 54 megabit per second standards, but problem is that you couldn't get very far away from your wireless access point, which is going to be the device that's going to connect your wireless devices together, right? Then they came out with B. B came out the same year, 1999, and it was 11 megabit per second. Okay, the only difference really was A operated off of a 5 gigahertz frequency, which is faster but doesn't go as far. B operated off of a 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which could go further, but it was slower. So it was only 11 megabit per second. They also came out with G in 2003, which could go 54 megabit per second, and it also operated off the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which means it could go further and it could go as fast as A did. Then in 2009, they came out with N. N, there's, depending upon the type of equipment you got, you could go faster or slower, just kind of depending on equipment, but generally speaking, you could go 300 megabit per second with it, and it supported a feature called dual bonding, which allowed you to double the speed by using both frequencies, 2.4 and 5. You could get a faster performance off of that, and you could bond these things known as channels together. Okay, another thing that came out that same time is this thing called MIMO, this multiple input, multiple output, which allowed your antennas to be doing multiple things, input, output at the same time. Prior to N, your antennas on a wireless access point could all had to be doing the same thing. And then as we fast forward into the year 2013, we get to AC. AC is the newer standards, and of course that AC, depending upon the equipment, you could go anywhere from like a gigahertz up to about almost 8 gigahertz. Gigabits, a gigabit per second, or up to 8 gigabits per second. Okay, so a lot of performance on that. That one can uses the 5 gigahertz frequency. Though a lot of people don't realize it, they'll use the 2.4 gigahertz frequency instead on that one, and you're actually dropping yourself down to N. So if you're using 2.4 gigahertz frequency while you're using 802.11 AC, you're actually using N. A lot of people don't realize that, but you're going a lot slower than you need to. 5 gigahertz is the better performance. If you don't believe me, look it up. And a lot of people disagree, and they're like, oh no. And the reason they think that is because the 2.4 gigahertz frequency goes further, but it doesn't go faster. So if you go farther away in your home or your business or whatever from the access point, you may notice 802.11 in 2.4 picks up better just because it goes further. Okay, but AC is actually the faster standards. Now, the other thing I want to point out, guys, is that you probably didn't know that there's more letters than just those. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through the alphabet. In fact, they've used all the alphabet letters up, and then they had to start doubling alphabet letters. By the time they got to the year 2013, they had already used all the alphabet letters up. You just don't hear about those other alphabet letters. Those are revisions to wireless because they don't have anything to do with speed. And the thing everybody cares about, of course, is speed, right? Okay, so the other thing I want to point out is the wireless encryption protocols. One thing you're going to want to know for this course, the exam, is the different encryption protocols. The first encryption protocol that came out was called WEP, the Wired Equivalent Privacy. Of course, a lot of people call it Weak Encryption Protocol. This came out in the 90s, and it uses an older encryption called the Rivis Cipher 4 encryption, which is a weaker encryption by today's standards. It came out in the 1980s. It also uses what's called a 24-bit initialization vector. Now, not to turn this into a cybersecurity class or anything, but the initialization vector is something that works with your encryption key to keep changing the math of it constantly. 24-bit is not a very big number in regards to the initialization vector. So what happened was, it didn't take long. By the early 2000s, hackers could actually pull up in your parking lot. They could get a tool called AirCrack and AirSnort, and they could actually sniff some traffic in your wireless and break your encryption key very quickly. And today that would just take, in some cases, a few seconds with WEP. So you don't want to be using WEP. You definitely want to get rid of WEP in your environment. After WEP was discovered to be weak, they came out with WPA, Wi-Fi Protected Access, which we now call WPA version 1. It also uses RC4, which is still considered weak, but they did improve this by using TKIP, Temporal Key Integrity Protocol, which gives us a 48-bit initialization vector, which is a much more secure way to do it. Problem is, they can still be broken with enough time. Then eventually they came out with the new standards. The standards was originally called 802.11i. 802.11i is WPA version 2, okay, which uses AES, Advanced Encryption Standards, which is a much stronger type of encryption for our wireless. And then they also replaced TKIP with something better. It's called CCMP, Cipher Chaining Mode Protocol, which uses a 48-bit initialization vector as well, but it's got better math involved in it, so it's more secure. Okay, so those are your wireless encryption protocols that are generally used in your environments. Now, I also want to tell you those are going to encrypt your traffic, but you also have to authenticate to a wireless access point, and there's two modes of authentication. Okay, now authentication means that somebody who's connecting to wireless, they have to prove that they are who they say they are. There are two modes to that with WPA: personal mode and enterprise mode. Personal mode is also called PSK, pre-shared key. This is generally what you use for small businesses. We also use this in homes, like I've got this at my house right now. It's basically just a password, okay? And the password is the key, essentially, that's going to unlock access to that wireless. And you just share that with people in your environment. Of course, the downside to that is that anybody could share that password with anybody else, and there's no real accountability to it. There's no way to differentiate between different people, so there's that problem. In higher security environments, you want to be using enterprise mode. Enterprise mode is 802.1x authentication. Okay, I know that does not say 802.11x, that says 1x. That's because 802.1x authentication supports wireless, but it also supports wired connections as well, believe it or not. This is going to be for environments that need a much higher level of security. Okay, each user has the ability to use multi-factor authentications. You can use passwords, PIN numbers, smart cards, certificates, biometrics, all sorts of different authentication. There's actually a protocol that works with it. I didn't put it on the screen, but it's called EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol, that's going to help this enterprise mode function. Now, in order to do this, you will need to have a server known as a Radius server or something like a Radius server. Radius is an industry standard service. It stands for Remote Authentication Dial-In User Service. You can tell by its name. It's been around for a while. This is what ISPs used to use in the 90s for their dial-up connections, but over time it's been used for other things, VPNs and this particular thing. There's also another type of server known as a TACAX Plus server. There's also what's called Diameter, but Radius is sort of the industry standard type of service that people use. If you have a Windows server, you can actually install Radius for free, though they don't call it Radius, they call it NPS, which is Network Policy Server on a Windows server. Okay, so this is going to, again, let everybody have unique usernames, passwords, or certificates, smart cards, and this is a lot more secure than using PSK mode. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an understanding of the Wi-Fi settings and the different modes. Okay, and of course I'm going to be getting into configuring some of the Wi-Fi settings coming up.